Yes, 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 you should feel fine. It looks like the end of the world, but maybe it's not. Let's try to figure it out together, shall we? I'm Marz, Theron. This is Conspiracy Comedy News on American Freedom Radio. Boy, oh boy, there's not that much going on, and yet there's a lot going on. Like last week, I started off with my protest report. For those of you who've listened to the show before, it's like usually I save that for last, but that's all it is, really. The biggest thing going on that the people are all involved in. They got that protest going on all over the place. It started it, in Charlottesville. Now it appears our protesters are giving a gift that keeps on giving. I'm telling you. I'm starting to wonder when I'm going to change the name of it to the Civil War Report. Is it not obvious they're trying to push us, these left-right paradigm monsters, these radicals on each side of us are trying to push us towards something? The Civil War, perhaps? And I'm not just saying that because all of a sudden Civil War memorabilia is being taken down and torn apart, and that has become the dividing line. Sheesh. I mean, where are we gonna draw the lines? Are the battles going to start at statues? So anyway, yesterday, of course, thousands of protesters flooded the streets of Phoenix, Arizona, because Donald Trump was addressing a rally at the downtown convention center. Oh, it was amazing. The protesters were chanting, "Shame, shame, shame," and "No Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA, cha-cha-cha." I gotta hand it to him. That one's catchy. No Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA. I usually don't like rap music, but that's got a beat, and I can dance to it. It's great. I'm not saying that I like that. I like the song. Somebody's gonna put that. What do they call that? When they put it up on the internet with the music behind it, they turn and they damn. There's a word for it. Where they go and it makes a robot voice. That'd be a cool one. I may have to figure out how to do that and do it myself. Beat him to it. So anyway, Trump said that the very dishonest media mischaracterized his response to the violent protests back then on the 12th in Charlottesville. He said he openly called for unity, healing, and love, and denounced violence in the strongest possible terms. But the press did not report those comments. No. Instead, they fabricated other stories with no sources. They don't want the facts, just like they don't want to report that I spoke out forcefully against hatred, bigotry, and violence, and strongly condemned the neo-Nazis, the white supremacists, and the KKK. Okay, maybe it was the next day, but he did. Well, like I said in my last show, I listened to his first initial speech, and there was nothing wrong with it. These people are picking at straws. They're straw pickers. They're picking at them. I'm telling you, they're picking at enemies. Oops, I should not have said that. His reporters shouted, "Build the wall," and "Make America great again." Some other people shouted, "CNN sucks." I would have been with that crowd. And "Shame on you," and "Tell the truth." There were like 19,000 people that attended his campaign-style rally. A campaign-style... What is he still campaigning? Has anybody told him he's already got the job, huh? Why is he renting a convention center? Who does he think he is, huh? Miley Cyrus? I mean, what is he doing? I guess Twitter's not a big enough crowd for him. So, of course, after the event, the tear gas came out. Yay! The Phoenix police spokesman said, "People in the crowd have begun throwing rocks and bottles at the police. They also dispersed some gas in the area. Police have responded with pepper balls and OC spray in an attempt to disperse the crowd and stop the assaults." That's what he said. So yeah, they're protesting all over the place. Yesterday in Florida, after a few hundred protesters marched through downtown Bradenton on Monday evening, Manatee County Commissioners voted Tuesday to remove a Confederate statue from the front of the Manatee County Courthouse. The Manatee has its own county courthouse. Isn't that adorable? Well, one of the black protesters said in his speech, that courthouse is supposed to be for equal justice. Now that makes sense. I mean, I don't want to take sides of this, and yet, you kind of like have to figure out if there is a side. I don't think there is a side that makes sense for anybody to take. Nobody should be involved in it. You're all getting conned. You hear me out there? in Radioland, it's a fraud. They are deliberately putting us against each other, and they're bringing the most radical of each side to try to create the illusion that we're in a civil war. You know, but here's the thing. There's a lot of Confederate statues around the country. You know, I'm all for freedom of speech, but most of them should be left alone. You know, they represent this country's history. That's one point of view. And, you know, it's like they never... Why would they bother you now? I mean, do you have one out in your front yard? Do you see it every day when you come out of your house? You know, I get it. And compromise, it makes a hell of a lot of sense to keep a courthouse neutral. Sure. You know, that they should have the statue of the lady that's holding the scale, you know, with the blindfold on her, that's insinuating that justice is blind. Now that would be a good statue to have out there in front of a courthouse. You know, they just shouldn't have some guy possibly was fighting, you know, for the right to be a slave owner, a statue of him out there. You'd put that statue somewhere else, hypothetically speaking. You know, I wouldn't want to be a black person or a person of any different color that was walking by the statue going into that courthouse hoping for fair and equal proceedings. Would you? I mean, I can empathize. Or is that sympathize? You know, the statue is saying, give up hope, all you black people that come here, you're going to get lynched. So anyway, if that was the statue, but it wasn't. I'll get to that in a minute. But they had like this meeting yesterday, and Manatee County commissioners voted 4-3 to move the statue from the courthouse grounds to an equally prominent, respectful location due to safety concerns. What, the statue might fall on them? You think they're going to fall on them? What's the story here? The potential sites include the Veterans Memorial Park and Gamble Mission. A future meeting with public comment will be held to choose the location. But, on the other hand, have you seen this so-called offensive statue? It's an obelisk. It's a freaking phallic symbol. It's like a rectangular spire that's pointing at the sky. This is not some slave owner statue. It's on the base of it is engraved in memory of our Confederate soldiers. That's all it says. It was put up by Daughters of the Confederacy, you know, back in the 1920s or something. It's just a spire. It doesn't have some racist person, and what they're implying is that anything that commemorates the South at all is racist, and that's a lie. That's simply a lie. They're twisting history, and they're saying that it was all about slavery when it was not. It was a big part of it, but there were plenty of people that fought in that war. You see what I'm saying? You know, they're grabbing at these concrete straws here. There's a big old concrete spire straw they're grabbing at. Now, if I was a statue of a confirmed slave owner, that's what I was saying, that was fighting for the right to continue to own slave, that's one thing. But the majority of Confederate soldiers, as is true with most soldiers in all armies everywhere, they were slaves, hypothetically speaking. They were puppets, basically, of men with ulterior motives that were conned into fighting for the wealthy, you know, people with agendas. Those people were slave owners, you know. The slave owners were rich people. Most people in the South were not rich slave owners. Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederate States, said, "We're not fighting for slavery. We're fighting for independence, and that or extermination." They're pretty words, you know. But the truth is, of course, and I'm not trying to say that it wasn't a little bit about slavery. Each southern state's Declaration of Secession, they list slavery as one of their primary desires, you know. But doesn't every soldier deserve to be remembered? Is anybody protesting other veterans' statues, huh? No, just for that. Because they're saying that those guys fought to keep slavery. But they didn't. Sheesh. Of course not, you know. The leaders of this fake revolution, this faux revolution, they want us to fight each other over non-issues. There's nobody trying to make you slaves anymore. They're trying to make all of us slaves. It doesn't matter what our skin color is. They want to enslave us all. They have basically succeeded in doing that. And the evidence is even more plain when you look at the people running around doing their bidding being paid by Soros to be a member of Black Lives Matter or these Antifas. The people that are organizing them coming out, those are paid. Those are Soros paid. As a matter of fact, there was an Antifa protest once where they were protesting Soros not paying them. They were angry because they didn't get paid. It was a few months ago. Sheesh. So these are paid protesters, staged events, a bunch of fools following agents provocateurs, they're fake agents that come out there and they try to get it to turn violent. And it's like crisis actors are being reported still. That's right, I said it. A lot of these people answered an ad that they would be involved in a protest situation, carrying a sign, and a lot of them, they wanted them to act like they got hurt. That's right. I'm not making this up. More about that later. If I really feel like talking about that. I don't know. That's going a little too airy-fairy. That's a little too conspiratorial, if you will. But anyway, speaking of statues of Confederate slave owners in Florida, there's one in Fernandina, Florida, and this one hasn't been touched. Oh, no. It's a statue of David Levi Yulee. He was a Jewish slave owner. No, he didn't own Jewish slaves. Oh, no. He was a Jewish person, and he owned slaves. In 2000, in the year 2000, the Florida Department of State designated Yulee a Great Floridian and awarded plaques in his honor. And it's a pretty cool statue, actually. It's more like it's a bench statue. There's this bench, like a park bench, and they got this bronze guy sitting there, all relaxed, like he's talking to the person next to him. So if you sit on the bench, you look like you're talking to this Yulee guy, David Levi Yulee. He's got this big fat briefcase down there at his feet, and his legs crossed. It's kind of a cool statue. I wouldn't want to get rid of it. That's too cool. He was famous for his inflammatory pro-slavery rhetoric, if you will, in the U.S. Senate, and they called him the Florida Fire Eater. So you wouldn't want to sit too close to him on the bench because you might get burned, is the point I'm making. He resigned his Senate seat to support the Confederacy. He didn't need... but you know what I'm saying? He really shouldn't fear losing that statue, though, that little place on his bench, because he's got connections in this particular timeline. The ADL and the Southern Poverty Law Center are both recent recipients of millions of dollars in anti-racist donations from Apple Computer CEO Tim Cook and Rupert Murdoch's son, James, who's a 21st Century Fox movie mogul. So yeah. Let's see, what else? They pulled the Roger Taney statue, didn't he? He wrote the Dred Scott decision. Some statues, I'd say, okay, pull that one. That Dred Scott's decision was saying that black people cannot be citizens and have no rights. He said that the Missouri Compromise line was unconstitutional and that slavery was legal everywhere. At the beginning of the Civil War, I don't know if you know this, ladies and germs, but slavery used to be legal in every state in the Union. They were citing the Constitution and articles of the Constitution saying that, okay, this shows that slavery is legal right here. So, so they created this line that if a slave managed to escape his masters and get across that line, and there was all these different laws in different areas, like some of them they have to stay over there for 6 months or 9 months in different areas, and they would be able to be free for the rest of their lives, hypothetically speaking. So anyway, this guy, Roger Taney, he said that those lines didn't matter. So my question is, since those were clauses in the actual Constitution, have they been pulled? Are they still there? I don't know. I just work here. And how about Albert Pike? Y'all heard of that guy, right? That statue can go too. He helped create the KKK. He was a top Freemason. Didn't he also invent Luciferianism? I don't know. He was big in that crowd, though. He was a celebrity amongst them. So yeah, they can tear that one down. You gotta pick and choose. You got the Leon Jackson statue in that public park in Charlottesville. They've covered it with like a big black covering, big black tarp, in show of mourning for the woman killed by the car in weekend before last. The Charlottesville City Council voted unanimously to cover the statue early Tuesday. At the same meeting, residents and activists expressed anger, turning it into an hours-long town hall. They had banners and signs in there, and they were yelling. Of the city's handling of the rally, the Charlottesville Daily Progress described the meeting as a total takeover, with audience members demanding Mayor Mike Siner's removal. Yeah, he helped organize this thing, that particular protest. I talked about that last week, how his connections to the other guy that was on the other side of the coin, that they obviously knew each other. There were too many coincidences. Moving right along, a woman said her daughter was supposed to start her 4th year at the University of Virginia this week. She won't be attending the first day of class because of her injuries. Another man said he's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. He said he can still see the bodies that went flying after the car struck the crowd several hours after the Unite the Right rally was shut down because of rampant street fighting outside Emancipation Park. The location where white nationalists and white supremacists gathered on August 12th, isn't that an odd name, Emancipation Park, to put a statue of the people who fought for slavery? Very strange. The paper also reported that 3 people at the meeting faced misdemeanor charges and that the entire city council, the city attorney, the city manager, and council clerk all retreated into a back room. They got out of there. The council had voted earlier this year to take down the Lee statue because it has prevented from doing so because of a legal challenge. A Virginia law prevents the local authorities from removing war memorials. So yeah. Well, as I said, I shouldn't mention this, but there are people who are examining this footage of this thing, and it's like, this one guy was talking about there's 2 different videos of it, that maybe one of them was a rehearsal, it was a staged event, and another, they're comparing and contrasting the girl's mother with an actress that they're saying is a crisis actress from Sandy Hook, that's the same woman. I'm just a reporter, but we are constantly being lied to, is the point I'm making. And that's the purpose for me doing this show, is I'm trying to cut through it. But I don't know that I want to really go there, but I'm telling you, some people are going there, okay? Another Confederate soldier was John Mosby. Now, he's got a statue up there, but he was anti-slavery. So do the people research the statues that they want torn down? I mean, what about some of them that are like cut into the mountainsides, like that huge one with all those... You know, it's hard to say. What are they going to go after next? It's crazy, I'll tell you. You know, a lot of our military bases are named after Confederate generals. A lot of our cities are named after Confederate generals and Confederate, people of the Confederacy, and streets named after. I mean, where's it going to end? It's just mind-boggling that they're allowing this to continue. But it's like that's the whole thing. They're trying to make us fight each other. So does it end? Will it end? If we give in to these people, are they going to calm down? Well, no, because they're puppets. If we continue to give in to them, say, okay, go ahead and tear all the stuff you want to take down. There was a lady on some news show that was, the guy asked her, well, you're going to want to, George Washington was a slave, or should we take down all evidence that George Washington exists? And she said something to the effect of, all in good time. It's like, come on. This is our country's history. We're not proud of the slavery part, but it was all about states' rights, and we should be in favor of states' rights because there was a lot of things going on besides slavery that the Confederate States wanted to withdraw from the Union over, and it had a lot to do with the money. They didn't want to be taxed. It was tariffs and that sort of thing. There was a lot. Each state had. You can read it. The articles of secession for each different state, and you'll see that there are multiple paragraphs in their declaration of why they're seceding from the Union. And they each had their own individual grievances, but a lot of it was just that. And it's kind of like why we declared independence from Britain in 1770s. Taxation without representation. Well, that was the same thing going on to the Confederate States, and they disapproved. It's all complicated, but like I said, how how much do they? How much do we have to give them? These radical left wingers, these Antifas and Black Lives Matters, these puppets of George Soros. You know, he doesn't want them to stop being radicals. And the same thing with the other side. He doesn't want them to stop coming out with their KKs and their alt-rights and their white supremacist crap. They want it to grow into bigger fighting until they can declare martial law and bring a police state down around our heads. And those of you who are out there who are participating are gleefully happy that you've got something to do in your spare time. Ooh, let's go to a rally and watch people get beat up, or bring a stick and signs. And, you know, I used to march, but I wouldn't march for either one of those causes, for either side. It just doesn't make sense. I'm an anti-war person. What happened to us being anti-war? Do you see anybody protesting the wars? We've got soldiers all over the world, mass murdering people. You know, the question is, what are the goals of these people that pull the strings? So ask yourself that. There was a guy that got published in the Washington Post. Of course, I don't read the Washington Post, but this was an interesting thing because, you know, he calls himself NDB a black man, NDB Connolly, and he had his article published in the Post. The question is, why would the Post publish this? You see, it's a long piece, and it talks about racial struggle. Good, fine, I get it. It sucks having people who are racist against you if you happen to be a minority. I understand that. I understand it, as a matter of fact, because I grew up down in South Texas where, as a white person, I was a minority. So it's like they had one black guy in my school, one Chinese guy. We were friends. We had a little guy, we called ourselves the Neapolitans. I was vanilla, the Mexican guy was strawberry, and the black guy was chocolate. It was not about race to us. There was no way. I mean, my grandmother was from South Africa. She was trying to get me to be a racist. I'm like, are you crazy? My opinion is, to be racist, you have to be stupid. And that's what that's all about. So no, there's no way I'll ever be or have ever been. Anyway, so this guy says, he basically ends it with "start throwing rocks." That was his final line in the article, and that's kind of inflammatory when you think that right away if you don't read the whole thing and get what he's doing, you figure this is him saying that people should start throwing rocks. But it appears that he's making a reference to the game rock, paper, scissors, right? He claimed that his side, the anti-racists, they've been throwing paper too long against the KKK and neo-Nazis, and the KKK and neo-Nazis, they're throwing scissors, like throw down your hand, like your card, your hand, you throw down the rock, paper, scissors. So yeah, so since they're throwing scissors, he concludes. Well, here's what he says in the last paragraph. He says, segregationists have again assumed their pedestals in the Justice Department, the White House, and many other American temples. Paper alone won't drive them out. Start throwing rocks. But the fact that, it's a cute article, but the fact that the Washington Post would publish that and not realize that it's, it can be insinuated that he wants people to get violent, as if it already isn't already, but he's trying to stir it up and make it maintain that level of throwing things. They're throwing bricks out there, I tell you. They pick up trash cans and throw them. They're throwing big old building blocks at each other. So yeah, that's what Trump's pointing out. It's the media. He says that these things wouldn't be that big of an issue if it wasn't for the media. And, so these people have chat rooms that they go and they plan their attack and they plan their weapons and that sort of thing. Let's talk about another crazy son of a gun. That's Steve Bannon. He crazy. They're crazy. He was recently sacked as the White House chief strategist. It looked like he was, at first it looked like he was fired for saying that he could fire people. That's what he said, and then he got fired. It's like Trump said, "You don't fire people, I fire people. By the way, you're fired." That's what it looked like to me. But apparently it's something else. Anyway, so he was, the thing about him was that he was with Goldman Sachs before he went to be with Breitbart. And that was before he became a member of Trump's national security team. This Bannon guy. Donnie said that he changed his mind about pulling out of Afghanistan because he was convinced by his national security team to take on the Taliban. Oh, you're taking on the Taliban, are you, Donnie? Well, that's like the longest war we've ever been in as a country. So you see, this Steve Bannon, he went from being an investment banker with Goldman Sachs to being a media executive. He was the executive chairman at Breitbart News to the White House chief strategist. And during the 7 months of Trump's presidency, he attended the Principals Committee of the National Security Council, the very people that Donald says talked him into staying in Afghanistan, the longest war this country has ever been in. And now, Goldman Sachs crew in the White House, they're still there. They got Gary Cohn, Steve Mnuchin, Dina Powell, Jared Kushner, that's Trump's son-in-law. So are they going to bring about the final destruction of the Trump presidency? Bannon thinks they will. This cast of characters, they could trigger a thundering collapse in the markets, which will finally crush Goldman Sachs and its posse of gamblers and crony capitalists. I don't know. That's one person's point of view. I mean, I read all these different conflicting articles. Will that happen? I mean, would they do that? That would be a good reason, a good manner, a good technique to get rid of Trump, if that's their goal. See, now Trump has appointed a former Marine general as his chief of staff. This John Kelly guy. He was the Secretary of Homeland Security. Homeland Security, National Security, huh? It sounds like two names of the same thing, doesn't it? Anyway, General Kelly, he did 3 tours in Iraq. He lost a son in Afghanistan. Now, if you want to find somebody that's going to rain hell on Afghanistan for you, Kelly's your man. Afghanistan is, we have a long history with them. It's like we've been there for 16 years now. We started in October 2001. It's been a continuous war marked by the U.S. military occupation. After 9/11, that was our self-inflicted wound. Afghanistan was defined as a state sponsor of terrorism. And in 16 years, we haven't managed to change that status. See, the real reason that we're occupying and attacking that country, besides, of course, creating and maintaining a thriving opium production, generating over $200 billion a year, well, they've also got a vast mineral wealth, a perfect pipeline location. That was their original desire. We're trying to get them to let us put these oil and gas pipelines through there. The Russians were already pulling oil and gas out of there, but they wanted to run a pipeline through there, right? But have they given up on it? No, they don't care about that so much anymore, because all of a sudden they're starting to learn. Plus, they want to establish these 9 military bases. They needed because that country borders on China, Pakistan, Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. So they get to put these permanent military bases around there. So they're never going to pull out. They're already set up. They got hot and cold running plumbing over there. We as Americans were sold on Afghanistan as the war to end Islamic terrorism and insert Western-style democracy in there, right? And did we do that? Did we, huh? Huh? Anybody? 16 years later, and counting. And then they found out they got these vast reserves of lithium. And since we've been in there, lithium's become pretty important. Batteries, electric cars, laptops, Blackberries. Oh yeah. They need that lithium. They want that lithium. What else do they got? They got the largest copper reserves in the Eurasian continent, and it's only 20 miles from Kabul. Their iron ore deposit yields ore of an extraordinarily high quality, the reserves of which are estimated to be 500 million tons. That's a lot of tons. Oh yeah. The Soviet specialists, they discovered these huge gas reserves back in the 60s, and they built the first gas pipeline in their country. At that time, the Soviet Union used to get 2.5 billion cubic meters of Afghan gas annually. During the same period, They found large deposits of gold, fluorite, barytes, and marble onyxes with a very rare pattern. Some beautiful stuff over there. Oh, and the pegmatite field. Oh, baby. Baby. These are sensational. They found rubies, beryllium, emeralds, kunzites, hidenites, and kidynamite. They found it all. They found so much over there. It's like, it's a huge mountainous, difficult to navigate country, but it's worth the effort. You know, they can't find any of this kind of jewelry anywhere else. This is like the most beautiful jewelry type things, you know. It's just like for the people who like precious stones, and who doesn't like precious stones? And they stretch for like hundreds of kilometers of these deposits. And the rocks, you know, they got rare metals. They got beryllium, thorium, lithium, tantalum. These are like very important for aircraft and spacecraft construction. And they got coal. Oh, Lord, they got coal. They got massive coal deposits. Some of the largest high-grade deposits in the world. And they knew all this, or at least they suspected it before Unocal went in and told the Taliban that they would carpet them with gold or carpet them with bombs if they didn't let them put some pipelines through there. And, of course, the Taliban says, no, we don't want to get ripped off by you people. We can handle our own stuff. Thank you. So the American military, you know, they set up along their borders, and that was before 9/11. You know, when they put on that big show for us, you know, they rigged these two tallest buildings in New York City with explosives, and another one adjacent for good measure, and threw a couple of planes at them. They even wrecked the Pentagon to make sure that the military would be on board. Oh, the military wanted some payback. You can't blow up the Pentagon. I don't care what you threw at us. Looked like it could have been a jet. No, it wasn't a jet. Well, anyway. They blamed it all on their patsy, Osama bin Laden. Just trying to catch you up in case you haven't been listening. The CIA agent named Tim Osman. And that he was supposedly residing in a cave in Afghanistan. That's where they put him. That's so they could have their patsy. It's kind of like they put Lee Harvey Oswald in the book depository so they could point to him and say, well, he was over there. That's our patsy over there. So they put the patsy Tim Osman over there. The mainstream media has been to blame by our commander-in-chief, as I mentioned a while ago. He says that they're responsible for this conflict between the radical extremes on the left and right. You know, and Trump knows that. He knew it going in that our news outlets are fake news, and the rest of you kids should too. Our mainstream media news, sheesh, it's all fake. They call it mainstream, I call it lamestream, everybody else call it lamestream. It's fake, I tell you, it's fake. It's been taken over long ago. 1,500 newspapers, 1,100 magazines, 9,000 radio stations, 1,500 TV stations, 2,400 publishers. They're all now owned by 5 corporations. And there are CIA agents in all the main newsrooms. Which is why, of course, I was talking about how the Washington Post, you know, they got bought up by that guy from Amazon, and he's got connections with the CIA. It's all about that, and the Pentagon. So, you know, these people are the mouthpieces. Say, well, you know, we need to make sure we have articles flowing that'll stir people up and make them want to go out there and protest and create a scene. And soon it will all be violent, and the world will be mine. The country will belong to us. Let's see, what is this? CNN and Time, you know, they've been the mouthpiece of Time Warner. Now it's, what is it, Spectrum. And those are the liars for the Democratic Party. And the same with CBS. They own 60 Minutes. And Stephen Colbert. Oh, Colbert, you sold your soul to the devil. I can't believe he did it. He used to be neutral back when he was on Comedy Central. But now, he's Borg. Rupert Murdoch's news group owns Fox and the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post. He's the mouthpiece of the Republican Party. That's Rupert Murdoch for you there. Of course, everybody should know that. GE is a major war profiteer. All of these corporations, all the CEOs of all the board of directors of all these corporations, you know, they're invested in other things that are all involved in the military-industrial complex. But GE is the most obvious of them. They own NBC. Disney, and they had at least owned some oil corporations, and they bought ABC, so they're in charge of the ABC News and the minds of our children. The CEOs of these corporations are all glad-handers. They all know each other. Some of them are members of the boards on the other corporations. They're members of the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations. They attend these Bilderberg meetings, and they're involved in the international banking cartels. They're all involved in big oil, pharmaceutical corporations, all that. And so there's nothing new about our media being a propaganda outlet. It has been since before any of us were born. So this, ladies and gentlemen, this American Freedom Radio is alternative news. We ain't in with that horrible group of people. And that's the main difference, is now, the last decade or more, we have access to independent journalists globally throughout the internet. For every one of those high-paid, pretty people, high-paid. Yeah, they pray highly. For every one of those high-paid, beautiful people, all well-groomed, sitting there on your TV cue card readers, lying to you, reading the lies off their teleprompters, there are thousands of independent journalists out there. So if you haven't completely detoxed from it, I encourage you to do so. Because, these people, they're holding all the marbles, ladies and gentlemen. And we got to have brass balls to fight them, because they have Goldman Sachs. It's a groaner, I know, but I like saying it. But actually the truth is it's the other way around. Goldman Sachs have them by the balls. Have the elites by the balls. And, the banksters, they control our government, of course. It goes without saying. But, that's what I would say to Trump, If I had a chance, I'd tell him, Nani, they're holding all the marbles. You got to have brass balls to fight them, because they have Goldman Sachs. But I'm sure he knows that. They control the stock market. Goldman Sachs, as I was saying a while ago, they can make it crash. If they take him down, everyone is going to blame him, right? The press will say that he caused the economy to crash. And this is why he wants to double our military spending to keep them happy, because they're major war profiteers. He wants to make sure that the banksters, if you will, they maintain their chokehold on international corporate dealings. And he needs to keep the pharmaceutical industry happy as well. This is their bread and butter. And as long as he's making sure their bread gets buttered, he can stay in power. Yeah, he talked a good game, but just before, it's like we all fell for it. He talked, to get elected, these people say anything. And then their promises go out the window. It sure did with Obama. I remember that. He was saying all kind of things that he had no intention of keeping. So yeah, Trump was attacking Goldman Sachs, and he claimed he was immune from their influence. He actually said that on numerous occasions. But he knows who's the boss. Here's a question. Has Trump pardoned Arpaio yet? Anybody? Call in if you know. I know he was planning to. Maybe he was hinting around at it. And the White House has actually written up the paperwork for him. He's got all he has to do is sign it. And Trump will get Arpaio will get a pardon. That guy. He's a racist. He's definitely a racist. And if he's got a statue, pull it. But that was the guy that did forensics on Obama's fake birth certificate. So he's okay in my book. He's not all that bad. A lot of people discovered the multiple layers of fraud on that pathetic attempt at proving Obama was born in Hawaii. I can't believe they actually put that up so that anybody could look at it and then just said, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, if you discover that there are layer upon layer upon layer of documents, of forgery on top of that thing to make a multi-layered document. It is all digitally done, and it's been taken apart by everybody who knows anything about taking something like that apart, to discover that it was a fake. So, if he was, that's the question. If he was actually born in Hawaii, then why did he have this fake birth certificate? That's the question that we all were worried about. And I'm just reminded of that because it's Arpaio. You remember Arpaio. Here's a little something I ran into that is very much topical about today, since I was talking about how we kill people in countries all over the world. In 1976, Gerald Ford, President Gerald Ford, he signed an executive order banning political assassination. And then the next president, Jimmy Carter, he issued a new order strengthening the prohibition by dropping the word political and extending it to include persons employed by or acting on behalf of the United States. In 1981, Ronald Reagan signed Executive Order 12333, and the language is pretty clear to me. It says, no person employed by or acting on behalf of the United States government shall engage in or conspire to engage in assassination. And the order is still there. It's still in effect. Or is it? Congress commissioned a report on this subject from the Congressional Research Service, yet it has avoided legislating the issue or even defining the word assassination. Whether one calls a murder a targeted killing or a signature strike or whatever they say, any extrajudicial, that's a tongue twister, extrajudicial killing carried out by agents of the U.S. government, and that includes somebody sitting there operating a drone. Killing out by agents of the U.S. government of a person who poses no imminent and immediate threat to citizens of the United States in a country with which the United States is not at war, that's an assassination. And exactly what countries that we are currently mass murdering people in have we actually declared war on? Huh? We're at war all over the place, but we aren't in a declared war. So therefore, all the people we're murdering on a daily basis, for example, in Syria, they're illegal. So why isn't anybody getting arrested? Huh? Why isn't anybody getting arrested? Old Donnie Trump, he may not finish his term as president, but the CIA and the Pentagon, they're going to live on. They have unprecedented powers. These forces have attained through the Democratic and Republican administrations, and they're continuing to accumulate them under Trump. As a matter of fact, Trump already, I reported on this, God, it seems like it's probably about a month ago, he gave the CIA and the Pentagon a free rein. He just told them, y'all go ahead and do what you want to do. And I haven't got time to look at it. You just do it, and I don't even need to hear about it. You just go ahead and do what you want to do. And he said that he would double the spending of our military spending, which basically means he would double the the donations to the military-industrial complex. But meanwhile, all this is going on, and what is our citizens worried about? What are they out there protesting in the streets about? Statues. We're mass murdering people all over the world. Whatever happened to the anti-war demonstrations? They are few and far between, if ever. So yeah, Syria. We've been murdering the people in Syria for years. We don't have permission to be there. And now they're establishing military bases in the Kurdish area. That's been in the news recently, in northern Syria. In the northern Syria and Iraq and even Iran and southern Turkey. There's this area that's called Kurdistan, but it's not a declared country. But they've been trying to achieve autonomy, if you will. And recently, I think it was the Kurdish area in Iraq is actually they've already written up and trying to create a constitution and become a separate country. So, it's like there's two sides to that. It's like, is that part of our balkanization of Iraq? Or are these people finally standing up? So yeah, but anyway, our military, we stuck bases there, and we don't have permission to be there. The Kurds don't want us there. The Syrians don't want us there. I think the Iraqis have just given up on trying to kick us out. But in the news, we have the Russian Defense Ministry. They say their aircraft have eliminated more than 200 Daesh terrorists on their way to eastern Syria city of Deir ez-Zor. Now, this is a major accomplishment for them. As these guys are trying to shift their forces around, the Russians managed to take them down with some airstrikes. The reason I mention that is because the Russians, they do have Assad's permission to be there. You know, Assad, the president of Syria, he wants us the hell out. He never wanted us in. We invite ourselves into these countries and just start mass murder. We did it in Afghanistan, and then we moved on to Iraq. We've been doing it all over the place. Don't get me started on Yemen. So what else? The operation also destroyed around 20 SUVs laden with large caliber weapons and mortars, as well as armored vehicles, including tanks. The ministry said in a statement on Monday. I'm always glad to see that that country is slowly but surely kicking the bad guys out that we put in, by the way. The ministry said the city is now witnessing excuse me, international terrorists trying to regroup and equip their last base in Syria. The defeat of ISIS in the Deir ez-Zor region will be a strategic defeat for the international terrorist group in the Syrian Arab Republic. So, yay, go team go. Because Syria is an important country. It's standing up to the expansion. And they border over there on Iraq and Iran. So, I root for them. I hope they stand strong. Earlier this month, the Russian defense minister said if the group lost the city, it would potentially mean it suffered an ultimate defeat. This is perhaps the main point at the Euphrates, which will in many ways indicate the end of a fight against ISIS. Yay! What else is important that I should be telling you about? You know, something I don't think I've done at all on the American Freedom Radio is giving you the radiation report. It's time for the radiation report. It's gotten pretty bad. Colorado Springs, Colorado is number 1 on the list of countries with the highest radiation report. Now, usually background radiation, if you don't have any kind of a nuclear fallout or nuclear spill or anything like that going on in your area, you won't read very much. You read about 5 to 20 counts per minute. Colorado Springs, Colorado has continuously, almost always been at the top of the list for radiation counts. They are clocked in last week at 18,149 counts per minute. That's like, if you consider 18 to be a high average, and they're reading at 18,000, that's 1,000 times normal background radiation. I do not know what's going on in Colorado Springs, Colorado, but if you want me to come and visit you and go skiing, I ain't gonna do it. Not gonna do it. That's way up there. The next highest one, that's not number 1 on the list, that's 18,000. The next highest one is 11,700. That's Idaho Falls, Idaho. You got Raleigh, North Carolina, it's also 11,000. Kansas City, I won't bore you with the whole list, but these are the highest ones. I'll just give you the top 10. Kansas City, then you got Little Rock at 10,000, Mason City, Navajo Lake, Spokane, Washington. Those are all over 10,000 counts per minute, which means they are still, they're 1,000 times what would be considered normal if it was 10 counts per minute. But not as bad as Colorado Springs. They're twice as much. Like Portland and Louisville, Kentucky, and Des Moines and Worcester, those are all over 9,000. Billings, Montana. New York City is over 9,000. And Augusta and Phoenix. Now, I expected to see California in that list. Usually they're pretty high. And down around 12 or 13th is San Diego, California. Now, I used to live in California. Over there, if you're driving south down the freeway going to San Diego, you're going to pass a nuclear reactor. You're gonna, some that's funny looking. I think there's 2 or 3 of them standing there with their little stripedy buildings over there on the coastline. And oftentimes, I will see, like, West Texas over in that thing, because we have we have a site where they bury nuclear waste, and there was a while back they reported there was a fire that they couldn't put out down there. I think it's like some kind of coal mine or something that they were putting barrels of nuclear waste into it, and it, created a fire, and it was like venting out. But I don't know what's going on with Colorado Springs. There's we're doing this to ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. They're doing it to us as well. Chernobyl was a big accident, and that's still got a little bit of radiation in the area. Mostly it's settled into the ground. There's areas you can't go into. We, as our military, goes out and we fire off all types of rounds of depleted uranium over there in the Middle East, and the countries that we're mass murdering people on. And what's odd about our country, the United States, is that we are in like this sink area of trade winds from both the west and the east. So you know how hurricanes will come across from Africa and come up along our coastline on our east coast? Well, it's kind of the same thing with the trade winds that have been coming across from where we go out there, and we put this depleted uranium, they call it, which once they fire those depleted uranium rounds off, they vaporize, and after they were doing that, like right away, this like the occurrences of lung cancer had like quintupled in this country, and they were saying that it's pretty obvious that it was because of this depleted uranium. And then we had the new gift that now keeps on giving, Fukushima. That's right, you thought I wasn't never going to mention Fukushima. Oh my God, I'm getting the sound coming up. So that's enough of that bad news. And this is Marz Theron. You're listening to American Freedom Radio, and this is Conspiracy Comedy News. Tune in next week, and I'll see you later.